It's okay not to be productive. It's okay not to be okay. Hello to the viewers who's watching with us right now. A pleasant sunny morning to all of you. This is Hazel, your host, and our segment for today is titled It's Okay Not to Be Productive, like how it's okay not to be okay. To help us spread mental health awareness and inspire hope, self-love, and acceptance, let's all welcome the brain behind Zero Waste to Living, a scientist, artist, and author, Anita Van Dyke. Hello, Anita. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Hazel. It's nice to be finally here.
How are you? Are you doing excellently fine?
Oh, yes, I am. I actually felt thrilled and very honored for the invitation to share my experiences with you all.
Yeah. Thank you for gracing us with your virtual presence for today. So let's not prolong this any longer.
Yes, we should not.
So, Anita, we all know that the pandemic has drastically changed our lives and way of living. Anita, can you share with us what was the most obvious feeling you felt during the midst of the pandemic? Were you shocked and worried hearing of the news? Because honestly, up until now, I'm still shocked and worried of hearing news of cases going up again.
Okay, you know what, Hazel? There is a palpable anxiety felt in air. And it's not just felt in hospitals, it's not just felt by the healthcare workers, but rather it is a sense of impending doom that permeates our everyday life as we wait for the tsunami of the COVID-19 pandemic to hit our shores. And in situations of life or death, we are faced with flight or fight instinct. But currently, I am in a frozen state and I felt guilty about it. I feel as if I'm a deer in headlights, frozen in anticipation, waiting for the war to come, and it is so exhausting.
Why were you guilty? I felt confused hearing this. It's not like you've done something wrong. Are you blaming yourself for what happened?
Um, Staying at home is by no means a hard sacrifice, yet the feelings evoked brings out a roller coaster of emotions. As I watch my colleagues who have already graduated, going to work, making sacrifices so that we can stay safely at home, I can't help myself but to feel guilty about it. Guilty for not doing enough, guilty for not studying enough, and guilty for not being enough. But this guilt is also laden with a small voice of relief, like, I'm only a human. I have a young child and elderly parents, and I don't want my job to be the cause of their sickness. But then, the small voice of relief is then snubbed out by a sense of responsibility to do something and be of service. And so the vicious cycle continues, and I'm doing nothing, yet I felt everything. You know, that kind of feeling.
Yeah, I understand where you were coming from. All of us was scared, like literally scared and worried for the unknown.
Yeah.
And I can somehow say that everyone has the right to feel scared during those times. It's not like we want this to happen anyway. So no one can force us to do something we don't want to do. It's not our time to protect ourselves and our family. And even though you're a med school student and it's part of your job to help save people, I can't invalidate your decision of staying at home and trying to protect your family.
Yeah, the feeling of guilt was just so overwhelming that even if I'm at home, I can't be still at peace.
Speaking of that, Anita, the pandemic was not entirely a bad thing for everyone. Some saw it as an opportunity to earn money and study. With everyone trying to do something during the pandemic, have you also felt the urge to do the same? To look for the silver lining of what happened and use it as an opportunity?
Yes, I did. I began the self isolation period with a sense of purpose. I was going to use this time to study harder for my final year project, to work in a few sides of
Yeah.
projects, and to spend more time with my daughter. So I thought that if Shakespeare could write King Lear during the quarantine period of the Black Plague, surely I could get on with my medical studies and be a more attentive mother. So, as you can see on social media, it is filled with posts about people using this time to cook, to declutter, to study, and to work on their startup companies. And you know what? The funny thing is that I felt obliged to do the same.
So how was it? Did it work? Have you taken grasp of the opportunity like everyone else has?
Actually, as the days carried on and as the weeks passed by, the early stages of energetic and enthusiasm petered away from me. I found myself tired, drained, and losing my spark for life. I blamed myself for being lazy, and I think that I just needed to have a routine and schedule more activities. I tried fitting more into these schedules in hopes to gain more happiness, yet none of this worked.
It's probably not just you who felt like that during those times. It's unexpected, you know. The pandemic didn't
Yeah.
even knock on our doors. It just invite itself in rudely. But even if it does, I doubt it would open our doors widely. The lockdown probably helped us stay safe physically, but it isolated us from the society and give us a lot of time to think for our future, which is slowly becoming blurry, and force us to do something to make the situation better.
Yeah, it's like that. The first few days was fine, but then the longer it gets, the more anxious and tired I am.
Anita, as a person who worries for the future and wants to achieve success without wasting any seconds or any minute of your life, what is your opinion on the increasing level of mental health problems, not just because of the pandemic, but more importantly on the thought of doing better, trying better, and to become better?
Um, in this modern age, the metrics of success are measured in outcomes and in outputs. But have you ever thought what happens when you burn out? The psychological toll this pandemic has taken on us is just beginning to surface. We are hearing people with increased levels of anxiety and depression, and even as a person without any diagnosed mental illness, I feel an underlying anxiety that can't be shaken. Yet we are still expected to be productive in the society. We are expected to keep calm and carry on. And there are many factors that play um, with increased levels of anxiety. For instance, the 24-hour day news cycle with doomsday headlines, the social distancing requirements that removes us from our supporting networks, and the taking away of our normal activities that often help mitigate these issues. So those are just some of the instances that play with increased levels of anxiety.
Going through that for 2 years wasn't exactly easy. I know every one of us here can testify to that. We aren't at peace and the news aren't helping.
It wasn't really easy for everyone. We are afraid for ourselves, but we also need to fend for ourselves and to our families. And even if we are scared, we don't have much choice but to go through it and fight with it.
Exactly. Can you explain to us how was your mental health during that time? Were you doing okay?
You know what, Hazel? I remember sitting on the edge of my bed one evening, crying softly as I put my finishing touches for my final year project. I have spent the day tending to my daughter, finishing deadlines, and even though I had not left the house, I was emotionally and physically exhausted. And it was really hard for me, you know, having been in that situation.
How did you cope with it? When and what made you realize that you needed to put a stop on doing something and trying to be better? That it's okay to take a breather sometimes.
Okay, how did I cope with it? Acceptance. Yeah, acceptance. There comes this moment that I finally told myself enough. I had to let go of the sense of urgency to do more. I realized that I didn't have to be productive at all the time because we're in the midst of a medical emergency. And it's okay not to write the great work of fiction or be the best medical student. It's okay to just exist. And in accepting this, my body gave a big sigh of relief like, gosh, I've been so tough on myself. And I could finally accept that in these uncertain times, we need to treat ourselves some grace. We need to put on our oxygen masks first before we can attend to others. And you know what? I realized that in looking for our own mental health, we can be better caregivers and doctors.
I agree, yes. Living and existing is indeed more important. With everything that's going on, it's not a luxury to give ourselves some time and space to prioritize and take care of ourselves.
Yeah, we need to.
Anita, you mentioned that you're a medical student, right?
Yes, yes, I am.
As a medical student and as someone who experienced anxiety and all the negative feelings brought by the pandemic, what notable advice could you give to our viewers today and to all the people who are also feeling anxious for their future?
Okay, let me formulate this first. There are many factors, there are many ways to help combat this sense of overwhelm you're all feeling. And it begins with taking care of ourselves. It begins with acceptance of these emotions and not feeling ashamed by them. And there are other mitigating strategies to fight this feeling, like looking and then taking advantage of the positive aspects of social media, like using it to connect to other people and know that you are not in this alone. And you should also go outside every day and enjoy the simple pleasures of nature. Um, it really helps. And another tip that I could advise to all the viewers out there, um, limit your intake of news. There's only so much information we need. It's important to be informed, but not overwhelmed. And now more than ever, we need to implement these self care strategies, but not in an oppressed manner like hashtag self care Sunday way, but a genuine slowing down that balances our mental health and well being. And this pandemic is not a war that can be won overnight. It is a marathon that requires a long-term approaches and mental well-being that needs to last even after this pandemic is over.
You're right. It's okay not to be productive. There are many more important things in the world than achieving success, like peace of mind, which I think is somehow very hard to achieve or
Yeah.
attain in these days. Taking care of ourselves is not a crime that we should be guilty about. And it's okay to take a breather sometimes. Anita, that was our last question, and before we end, you can give your last message to our viewers.
Okay. Um, as a former aerospace engineer, we regularly schedule downtime for aircraft. Downtime is as important as airtime. It allows our aircraft for maintenance, restoration, and repair. And as humans, we have metrics of productivity, and these are based on outputs, grades, key performance indicators, and etc. However, I realized that we don't have a measurement for our own downtime. And in times of crisis, it is just as important to make time for rest as it is for work. And this is a gentle reminder, not just to myself, but also to everyone out there, to my colleagues, and to all the viewers. It's okay not to be productive. It's okay to give yourself some grace. And I want to leave you a quote that Mary Oliver writes. It says, "It is a serious thing to be alive, just to be alive, on this fresh morning in this broken world." It is a reminder to all of us that sometimes existing is enough.
I don't know much about aircrafts, but sounds wise of you to share with us your experience and your last message. And I hope our viewers have learned something from that.
It is my pleasure and honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Hazel.
Yeah, thank you also for gracing us with your presence, Anita. It's really appreciate the effort.
Yes.
And once again, Anita Van Dyke, everyone. And lastly, don't forget to take care of yourself. It's more than it means anything in this world. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.